Either of you hear me?
Yes.
Yay. Which one of you has the presentation?
I do.
Okay. Can you try sharing that right now? Will it let you?
Hold on. I forgot to pull it up. I'm gonna do
Okay.
it. No, it says host disabled participants screen sharing.
Share screen. Where is the... Where's that at? Will it let you do it now?
Hold on.
Sure.
Yes.
Yay.
So I'm gonna go right here.
Hi, Spencer.
Hey, hi, Latini and Wilfredo.
Hi there.
Hello.
Thank you all for being able to help with today's program.
No problem. Oops. Did that by accident?
We should have some people joining us fairly soon. We'll get started here in just a minute or two. Well, I think we'll go ahead and get started. So welcome to everyone who is here today for the second to last in the Office of Accessibility Services Spring into Success series. My name is Spencer Scruggs and I'm the Assistant Director for the Office of Accessibility Services. We have a wonderful program for you today. We're talking about finals preparation and how to end the semester well, and some things to think about right now, because we're just 2 weeks away from the end of the semester. And I think it's really important for us to start thinking about what is going to be kind of the schedule that we choose to study. The preparation that we're doing right now is super, super important when it comes to finishing out the semester well. And so we know that the move to online learning and remote learning has been challenging, but nonetheless, we're I believe 4 weeks in, and y'all have, as students pushed through with this. And so we really want to congratulate you for that and support you over the next 2 weeks as we round out and finish out the semester with finals. So a wonderful thing about today's program is that it will be recorded, and so we're excited to be able to offer this, and it will be offered through an opportunity on our webpage to view the recording, to review resources that are available through this program. There will be a variety of different things that will go up on our programs and events page on our website. So excuse me. We have a wonderful campus partner with us today. So the Academic Center for Excellence and a variety of staff from that office are with us today to share some of their wisdom and insight on finals preparation and really looking at rounding out the semester well, and what tools are available for you to help you finish some of that. So I will let the Academic Center for Excellence staff introduce themselves, but we're so thankful to have them on and to welcome them to the webinar in this program as a valuable campus partner for students with disabilities on campus. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Shane and his team.
Hi, my name's Dr. Shane Hawken, and I'm the program coordinator for the Academic Center for Excellence. And I just really briefly want to welcome everybody and note that in addition to helping out with this program, we have online tutoring available for many of our classes if anybody needs it. So if you're looking for tutoring the next 2 weeks, feel free to go to ace.fsu.edu, click on tutoring, and there will be instructions for online tutoring for a lot of the courses present at FSU. But now I'm going to turn it over to Latimia Richards and Will Vega, who are two of our study skills tutors who are experts on study skills, and they're going to actually give you the presentation today on preparing for finals. So Latimia and Will, if you would.
Hi everyone, my name is Latima Richards. I'm a study skills tutor along with Will Fredo Vega. These are typically, what we're presenting today are typically tips that we give students when preparing for finals, because, you know, it can be a tad bit stressful and we're just trying to help alleviate that stress. Will, if you would.
I mean, Latima pretty much said it all. I'm Will, and we're trying to help everyone the best we can with these weird circumstances that are going on right now. So ACE hours and location. So the location's still there in case anyone needs it for future reference, but obviously the academic center itself isn't active, but the tutors are still available online. So usually between the hours on Monday through Thursday, from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., tutors are available from then. From Friday, the hours go from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. We're not available on Saturdays, but on Sundays, we open again at 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. All right, so the study cycle. So the studying is a constant process. It's not just as simple as, you know, just looking over your notes the night before. There's always stuff that you can be doing before lecture, during lecture, and then after lecture, and then when the test comes around. So we have it kind of broken down into different sections. So we'll talk about what you can do before the lecture, during the lecture, after the lecture, and then when the test comes around, how you can prepare for the test, and then what you can do after your test, or after your test to prepare for the final. So studying before the lecture, there are different things you can do. So the first thing we have is using the syllabus to identify relevant topics that are going to be covered during the lecture. So depending on the professor, most of the syllabuses that you'll get will have the different topics that you'll have week by week. And those are good guidelines to go over the different topics that you need to look over for the final. Instead of just like reading your book from cover to cover, just go over the different topics that your professor has gone over in class and what he wants you to know. The second point, scan introduction/objectives, chapter headings, keywords, diagrams, and end of the chapter summary. Usually at the end of chapters in textbooks, they have a good summary of what each section goes over, but it's not so much in detail. So you definitely want to go back and review what is actually said in the chapter, because it'll go into a lot more detail when you actually read it through section. And depending on your professor, I've had professors in the past where whenever they have like lecture notes or PowerPoints, they'll have learning objectives or learning goals at the beginning or the end of the PowerPoint, or study questions that you can go over at the end of the lecture. And those are good guidelines of what you can go back over in the PowerPoint in case you feel like you missed anything. So if you are able to comfortably, you know, go back and answer the questions at the beginning or the end of the PowerPoint, that is a good gauge of how much knowledge you actually got from it. The third point, just taking notes on the assigned readings. That's pretty much just going over the readings and, you know, making any notes of anything that you feel like might be important, or if there's something that confused you, going through the reading and writing down anything that you don't quite understand. So maybe that'll give you the opportunity to ask your professor or show up during office hours if you have any questions. And then, yeah, that goes into the fourth point, which is based on the reading, formulate questions to ask in the lecture or during your professor's office hours.
All right, so taking notes during the lecture. So typically we want students typically suggestions that we give students is like, hey, you should try to take notes before the lectures, because sometimes depending on your professor, again, your professor will probably upload the lecture PowerPoint. Upload the PowerPoint before lecture, and then you can take notes on that and just take away the key concepts in the PowerPoints, which goes on to my second bulletin, which sometimes, depending, again, you'll have professors who kind of draw key examples from their own perspective, or things that are just not typically found in the book, and it can be difficult. And then another thing is to take notes of hard and complex topics and practice and review after the lecture. So you definitely want to, if you notice that your professor is kind of emphasizing more things over and over, that could be like just repeating the definition several times, or just how their voice fluctuates with the lectures. It can tell you how the person is, whether the person is saying this is something that's going to be on your exam. Because from my perspective, I know when my professor repeats things that she 100% is saying, yeah, this is going to be on your exam. And then she also has this thing where her voice fluctuates compared to the different, when she's talking about something straight off the PowerPoint, and when she's explaining it, her voice fluctuates on which topic she's trying to take away from the slide itself. Another thing is what to do after lecture. So this is still going over the study cycle. So during lecture, you want to take key points out of the lecture. And then when you're out of class and you want to talk to the professor after in their office hours or anything, it's better to do it within 24 hours, because you want to keep making notations of, yes, this is what we went over. Because I've had instances where professors would say it will be Wednesday, and they would say, what did we talk about on Monday? And sometimes some students won't answer because they're like, I don't remember that. I had a whole bunch of other stuff going on. So it's great to just continuously reviewing your notes. You can review them 10, 15 minutes before class, or you can do it at home after finishing classes. And that's when you should go back and clarify any concepts that you misunderstood. I have a professor that always says, the textbook is supposed to be for clarification of the topic, and when we come to lecture, you need to ask questions. That's how they kind of take their perspective of lecture. And it's better to take that approach than anything else. And then you also want to try to create graphs or graphical organizers for the topics that you're struggling with. So if it's easier to remember a picture than it is to remember something that is written. Because I've done that a lot, where I could not remember something for a class, and I remembered a picture that was associated with it, and I was able to get the answer solely because of that. So creating charts, diagrams, timelines to help illustrate relationships between key topics is very helpful. And just like how it says here, due to being on Zoom, some professors now record their lectures. So you can always go back if you missed something and talk to you and see what you missed. And then if you still don't understand it that way, then you could go back and talk to your professors and get some more clarifications on the topics. So the Pomodoro technique. This is something that's also associated with studying. We always try to emphasize using this approach, because what it is the backstory of it is a student named Francisco Sorelio, who in the 80s was trying to study for his exams, and he was so used to cramming that he didn't find it useful. So he said, why not try to find another way to do it? So what he had was a tomato clock, and which is the reason why we have the name Pomodoro, because the Italian word for tomato is pomodoro. So he had a tomato clock, and he set it to 25 minutes, and he did this on repeat. Like he did this every day up until his exams or any kind of quizzes that he had. And he realized that his grading, like his grades were starting to improve. Something was changing overall when he was just cramming and trying to understand the topics. So the Pomodoro technique in itself is setting a timer for 25 minutes, and then you're working with no distractions, breaking for 5, and then doing that again in the intervals of 4. Once you're done after the 4 rotations, you would then take a 15 to 30-minute break. That is totally up to you how much time that you want a break for. And it's pretty helpful. There's been positive feedback on doing this technique. And it's also available for anyone who wants to download this if you have an iPhone or Android. So it's in your Apple store. If you search Pomodoro technique and you put in focus, if you put in Pomodoro technique, you're gonna see the app called Focus Keeper. It's the same thing. And for Androids, it's just called Pomodoro technique, and it's right there, or Pomodoro method. It's the same thing. Another thing. Another thing that I wanted to mention is Bloom's taxonomy. Let me see if I can. Yeah. Another thing I want to mention is using Bloom's taxonomy. Is anybody able to see this pyramid?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, cool. So what it is just analyzing questions, trying to work with comprehension for students, because a lot of people think that studying is just memorizing, and it's not. It's making sure that you're not down here at the pyramid, you're more up here towards the analyzing, creating, and evaluating stages. So this is a website that's available for students. If you just search in Bloom's taxonomy, it will be there. And this is how you can structure your test questions if you ever come up to it. How you can structure it and say like how you're understanding the concepts. So understanding questions are typically how and what questions. Memorization is also the list and order as well. And then you have, it's just giving you a step-by-step of how you can structure a question for yourself. And let me go back to the PowerPoint presentation. Whoops.
All right, so preparing for the test. So these are just some steps that you can do to pretty much set yourself up for the highest chances of success. So the first thing you want to do is gather and organize all of your study material. This would be a good idea. This would be like a good time to, if you missed a lecture because something happened, the internet went out, or you slept in by accident, go back and watch any lecture recordings that you've had and take notes on them. And then just make sure you have like all of your notes together. You have all of your resources on Canvas available so that you are productive with your time. The second point, so without using study materials, complete practice problems, examples, and study guides to assess how much you know. So as tempting as it is, it has more of an impact if you try your best at these practice problems or any of these examples on your own to see what you actually already know, as opposed to just like peeking at your notes and just going along with it. So if you do this, this is a way that you can kind of gauge your knowledge and see what you actually need to focus your studies on. And that goes to the third point. So you can focus more on stuff that you got wrong or any concepts that you still like don't really have a comfortable grasp on. And then just reiterating what was said before. So like, since everyone is on Zoom, a lot of the professors are recording their lectures. So if there's just a concept that you just can't grasp on your own, it might be a good idea to see if you can rewatch a lecture and see what the professor has to say. Acing the test and beyond. So even though all of our tests are online now, these are still very much still applicable. So like the first point, arriving early and with all of your necessary materials to reduce anxiety. Even though it's relatively quick to get to your test online, there can still be like technical difficulties. The Wi-Fi could go out at any moment. Your laptop might not have charged. So it's a good idea to kind of give yourself enough time to get ready, get comfortable, get set up your laptop in a quiet, like testing environment. You don't want to be taking an exam that's worth 25% of your grade in your living room while your parents are watching the news right next to you. Like, you want to set yourself up in an environment where you feel comfortable to take the test. And along with that, a lot of the professors are using different testing parameters to give their exams. So, so some of the tests might be open note. So if you want to take the test with your notes out, you want to make sure you have all your notes so that you can use as much time as you can on the test to answer as many questions as you can. Whereas recently I took an exam and we had to all be on Zoom. So we had to have like our webcam facing us on Zoom, like showing us taking the test. And for that exam, I had to have like scratch paper because part of the exam was working out a problem on scratch paper and then taking a picture of it and submitting a PDF and submitting it into the test. So for that, I made sure like I had my phone, I had scratch paper, and I was able to message my TA who was proctoring the exam whenever I was taking the piece of paper. So he knew like I was on my phone, but I was just taking a picture of the problem that I worked out. I wasn't like looking up anything, because you definitely want to give your teachers and your proctors like the benefit of the doubt. So have your stuff all together so that you don't really necessarily need to get up during the exam or leave your chair, because like once you leave your chair, they don't really know what you're doing off the camera. So make sure you just have everything set so you can just like focus on just taking the test. During the actual test, the second point, so navigating the test, reading the directions, examine time, and the easiest questions. So definitely on all of your problems, try to read the directions as best you can, because some of them might have like specific words. So like there's always the question like, which of the following are true, or like which of the following are not true. And if you misread the question, you might get the whole question wrong. So definitely make sure you read the questions and go through the exam and examine the questions that you feel more comfortable answering. Because realistically, like exams are just like fishing for as many points as you can get. So if you can answer as many questions you know how to answer, rather than just like getting stuck on one question for 15 minutes and there goes like a quarter of your exam time on one problem, definitely try to get as many problems done quickly first, and then go back and answer the questions that you still have left. Again, depending on how your teacher is giving these exams, like my exam recently was the usual Canvas setup where all of your questions were on the screen and you just scrolled up and scrolled down. I know Latima had an exam where the professor had set it up where it would only ask one question, and then you'd have to click next and it would show the next question. And you said you couldn't go back or forth, right?
Yeah, you can't click back. So you had to make sure that that was your final answer.
Yeah. But in the case where you have the option to just like scroll up and down the entire test, Canvas has a very helpful thing of where you can like pin the questions or like mark it, and it marks it with a yellow tab, any of the questions that you're unsure about. So it's really easy to find the questions that you were stuck on. And then make sure you're giving yourself enough time to answer all the questions. Canvas is very unforgivable with the amount of time it gives you. So if it says like 50-minute exam, after 50 minutes, like a pop-up will show on your screen and be like, the exam is over, we're submitting it in 10 seconds. So make sure you're giving yourself ample amount of time to answer everything. 3, analyzing your test score and identifying missed items and correcting your understanding. So after your exam, you want to go through and look at what you got wrong. And then the next step is to figure out why you got it wrong. So if you got a question wrong and it's because you were, say like a math problem, and it was supposed to be negative, but you put positive, go back through the problem and see where you might have messed up. And if it's just like a concept that you got confused on, or you didn't know necessarily what the actual answer is and you might have just guessed, that would be a good question to go back and find the answer so you know so you know the answer if the question comes up in the future. And then number 4, thinking realistically and creating a study schedule to prepare for the next test. That's basically just flows into what we're going to talk about next as to creating kind of a time schedule of how you should be studying for your test and what topics you should be studying when. So the next thing we're going to talk about is 5-day study plan. This is usually what we offer students whenever they talk about an upcoming exam. It's not limited to 5 days. You can honestly start studying whenever and however early. There's never really, it's not possible to study necessarily too early. But we usually try to tell students like 5 days is like a comfortable amount of time to give yourself to study for an exam. So it pretty much goes like day 1 is preparation day. Day 2 is you're reviewing the most difficult material. Day 3, you're reviewing the material that you just went over the day prior and adding on a little bit more. And then day 4, you're again reviewing and adding on the material that you feel most comfortable with. So it's essentially day 4 should be like the easiest topics and the topics that you already have a good grasp of. And day 5 is kind of final review day before the test, like go over everything.
So, all right. So Dave, this is how you would do the test preparation on day 1. So day 1, you're just gonna sit down and decide for each of your courses what you wanna focus heavily on. So there's just like how Will said that they're pertaining to a math problem, like if it's something negative or you wanna go over just understanding absolute values or the slope of something, you definitely want to put that on day 2 if you don't fully understand it. Day 3 is referring to, okay, I somewhat understand what the professor was saying, but I think I need a little bit more clarification. Day 4 is something that you can easily understand and memorize. So, I was mentioning how I know the point slope formula solely because I've memorized that, and it's not going to be hard for me to just try to figure out how to find the answer based on that. So day 2 will be where I'm trying to work out how to properly work a point slope formula, and then just the memorization of how you will write it on a testing exam. So day 1, like I said, is just identifying the problem that you're having issues with. So the topic that you're having the most issues with, just identify it and make sure you collect all your notes and try to organize them in a way that you want to kind of understand how they connect in some sort of way. Part C is just basically the graphical organizers that you're going to implement into it. So we have graphical organizers for students. They're located here at, I'm gonna have to go back to my screen. What happened to my browser? Okay. So they're located here at ace.fsu.edu. And if it loads, cool. You just click on study tools and tips, and you'll see graphical organizers by subject area on your left. And here you will see that we have graphical organizers available for students for any kind of class that they're in. I do mention that it's not solely restricted to these classes. Like you can use something that's in math and you want to use it for English, or you want to use something that's in bioscience and you want to use it for philosophy. You can switch around the graphical organizers. It's just how you can relate to it, how understandable it is for you. This is my favorite one that I love showing to students. It's just the level of hierarchy. So I tell them to start at step 1 right here, where this would be like the base of the problem. And then you're just going up and up until you finally get the answer. And then on the left, I try to tell them, explain why you did that step. So this is helping with comprehension, because it's like you saying the statement of, I took a walk today. Then the person would say, why did you take a walk today? You would say, because I went to the store. So you're giving reasoning for why you took a walk, or why you went from step 1 to step 2, in a sense. And yeah. Come on. There we go. So like I said, you want to try to implement graphical organizers, and then you're just making sure that you understand the concepts and how they relate to each other. Another thing that you can do is this color guide that's right here at the bottom, where you have the highlighting of general information, and then you have the authors, titles, you know, the terms that you don't understand, and however you just try to, I would say, try to color code your notes to a point that you can understand it. And that will help you be able to create your study guides, which will help with the 5-day study plan and also Bloom taxonomy, which you can then create your own exam. So that way you'll feel more prepared with your with taking your exam. I know that typically the first day is hard for students. The first exam is kind of hard for students because they don't understand how a professor structures their exams. But even still, like, let's say you get a bad score, just go back to the professor and talk to them. And I'm pretty sure they will be more willing to help, saying, you know what, I will help you. This is how I typically structure out my exams. So you're going to have more of these true or false questions, or these multiple choice questions, or more of these writtens, because this is how I lay it out. So when you're on your next exam, you can start structuring it that way. I would say that once you kind of get the overall gist of some professors' lectures, because I know some professors repeat their lectures or repeat their exams over and over. So you'll probably get them for the same classes. Like, let's say you got them for psychology and then you're ending up having them for math. You'll probably see how different they structure their exams versus the courses, but sometimes it will be about the same. Here we go. So day 2 is, like I said, going over the difficult topic. And this is on the left right here is where it says the study topics. So you're just writing them individually. And if you created some kind of graphical organizers for them to try to understand how it works, and then you're also reviewing the graphical organizers, because like I said, sometimes pictures are a little bit better than just words. So it's easier to see a picture than it is to just try to remember words. So also want to put it into your own words of how you want to structure your exam, how you want to structure your graphical organizers, and just shorthanding it to the point that it's understandable for you versus what the professor is saying. Well,
Okay. So just some study and review strategies. So practicing your test, covering the text to see if you can answer the questions in the margins. I know a friend of mine likes to kind of like write the questions on one side of the paper and the answers on another side of paper, and then fold the other side and just have the question and see if he can figure out the answer without necessarily looking at it. So that's something you can do. And then taking your test, paying particular attention to writing out answers to essay questions, working with your notes. So rewriting your notes, not necessarily without looking, unless there's something in a class that you know, like the professor is going to ask you to memorize something. So say like for a chemistry course or something, if you want to draw a specific molecule or something, and that's something you know it's going to be on the test, it'll be a good idea to try to draw it out on your own, and then look at your notes and then see how close you were to it, and just keep like repeating it until you have it memorized and you can draw it out, basically like Harry practice. Reduce your notes to the most important points. Quiz yourself using your study guide. Have someone quiz you using your study guide. So Zoom could be really good for that, since it's very easy for us to stay connected you can just email someone your study guide and just get on Zoom or get on a phone call and just have them quiz you over and over again. And then using the read, cover, recite, check strategy. Latima, could you talk a little bit more about that?
So this is also known as the SQ3R method, which is basically survey, questions, read, recover, read, recite, and yeah, I forgot the third R. So it's very much effective when you're trying to study in general. So you wanna understand the scope of the topic. Then you want to question yourself, which is also goes with the quizzing of your study guide. So how well you do know the material, and then if you don't know it well, then even if you do or don't know it well, it's also good to go over it again. So you're gonna read it, then write it, and then recite it.
And then at the bottom, we have participating actively in tutoring or study group sessions. So the first one we have here is taking new notes that clearly explain difficult material in your own words. So this could be if you're, for example, like doing a problem, kind of working out your thought process and writing like what you're doing step by step, so that later when you're tackling another problem similar, you can kind of go through the steps in your head and work from there. Second point is explaining in your own words how to do step solving the math problem. Yeah, specifically for math problems, like there's a lot of very weird terms and very weird wording. So being able to kind of like dumb it down and figure it out in your own words can really help with your understanding, because they could use like a very particular term and you could just be like, okay, that just means divide by this number or something like that. And then the last one is verbally teaching the material to your tutor or your study buddies. If you are able to verbally explain how to do something, that shows that you have a better grasp of it than you did before. So if you're able to like verbally explain how to do, like how to work out a problem or explain like why you got that answer to a friend, it shows that you know how to do it off the top of your head. You didn't need any of your notes. You kind of just like, I know how to do this. Here's how you do it. And that's it. Day 3, self-test on previous topics. So for day 3, you want to go over the stuff that you went over on day 2. So that way you still have time to kind of go over a little bit that you still might be struggling with, to give you a chance to go over the most difficult material the longest amount of time. And then any new material that you introduce on day 3 should be stuff that you kind of have a grasp on. I'd say like maybe medium difficulty. You kind of have a grasp on it, but you're not super comfortable with it, so you still want to give yourself enough time to review. And then day 4, you're going over the stuff that you went over, that you introduced on day 2 and then on day 3. And then any of the stuff that you introduce on day 4 should be any of the material that you are most comfortable with. This should be introducing the easiest stuff and the stuff that you are able to do rather quickly last. So that way you've given yourself the most amount of time to learn any of the stuff you were having trouble with or struggling with. You had time to maybe talk to your classmates about it, talk to friends, email the professor any questions, ask for an explanation. And then day 4 is kind of just like, all right, I know how to do this. And then day 5 is just final review. You're reviewing all of the material that you've already introduced. Hopefully by now you've kind of gone over everything that you need to know. This is kind of just like your final review before you actually take the exam. It's probably best not to introduce anything new, because at this point you don't have a whole lot of time left to kind of like ask those questions or kind of like go over stuff last minute.
Okay, so again, the 5-day study plan is just day 1 preparation, and then day 2 is just going over the most difficult topics, and day 3 for our moderate to least difficult topics, you should typically seek going to your office hours for TA or professors, or seeing a tutor between day 2, 3, and 4. So you want to make sure that you are going to office hours to ask those questions, because like was said, you don't want to be on day 5 kind of still confused about what is going on, but then you have your exam. So you really don't want to introduce new material. So if you just realize that you didn't study a topic, I would say that it's best not to try to learn it right then and there, solely because you're going to start cramming, and that's going to stress you out before your exam, and you just don't want to do that. Another thing is a project to-do list. So one of the things that we introduce is, no task can be done within a day. It's so much easier to break it down into smaller topics. So definitely you want to try to implement the project to-do list with the 5-day study plan. So as you can see here on the project overview, these are for assignments or any kind of projects that you're doing. Even though it's called a project to-do list, it is very much detailed in what you want to get done. So even right here where it says the project overview, in this example, we're deciding a playwright, and the deadline for the playwright is that October, I think. Or yeah, I got my months mixed up, sorry. So definitely you want to submit it by the first 10/1. So 9/15, you're going to talk to your professor about the possible playwright, and then try to figure out what topics you want to lean towards. And then 9/25, you're narrowing down your choices, and you're going by each step by step. Then step 2 is like read bios and plays. So you're definitely before the overall deadline, you're definitely just breaking it down. Either if you want to do it week by week or day by day, it's however you want to do it. So this person definitely decided to do it week by week. So that's why you're seeing 10/15, 10/10, 10/21, and then 10/30, 10/11, and 10/27. Where the deadline is really December 2nd.
So these are pretty much what we've discussed, kind of like separated in different categories. So in order to be the most prepared student, you want to focus on working on time management, your learning strategies, test preparation, and navigating college, just figuring out what resources are available to you. Figuring out, like, even though campus isn't necessarily available, there's still campus resources that are still available online. And just being able to email your teachers and your professor and other faculty members whenever you do need that help. So again, online tutoring at ACE, it's by appointment, so it's appointment-based. I believe we're still doing 30 minutes or an hour for appointments. It's basically one-on-one help in courses, so course-based tutoring or study skills if you need help kind of figuring out how to manage your time before finals week. And then drop-in tutoring. I'm not quite sure how drop-in tutoring is working online. Is Dr. Hawken here?
I'm here. The group tutoring, there are links on our website, and people can basically go to a meeting that's being run pretty much just like this one right now is. And that's the group tutoring for a lot of the big classes like chemistry, calculus, etc.
Gotcha.
So again, we still do have online tutoring going on, and Strozer is doing their online tutoring, but I would say you will have to go to this link to figure it out, because I'm not sure how they're doing it. But here for us at ACE, we're still doing it to where you're signing in on your Campus Connect and you're scheduling it, you will also get a message that's saying this appointment is online, and you'll also get a link to that appointment, and you'll see your tutor at the set time. So it still works the same way, it's just different via Zoom. CARE is also doing tutoring. I'm not sure how they're doing it as well. I was trying to figure that out on their website, but anybody who's either a part of CARE or have family members that are part of CARE, they probably know how it's working, but it's very much different to how it is now. And we also have resources for math help if anybody needs it. So we have Khan Academy and Wolfram Alpha that can help you with any kind of math problems that you have issues with, or any problems that you have issues with in general. Because I know Khan Academy also branches out to chemistry or any kind of math and sciences. Another resource is also the Reading and Writing Center. So if anybody have any final writing assignment projects that they have to do, you can go here to this link and to create an account, because it's different how you set up appointments for the Reading and Writing Center. And once you create an account with them, you can set up who is available. You'll see who is available during which times. They have it color coded, so you'll definitely can kind of tell who's available during a certain tutoring appointment. And then on top of that, they're saying that some tutors do through Zoom and others don't, but you still can request to see appointments through Zoom. And they're still doing their opening hours from Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Fridays from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Another thing, everything that I've mentioned about time management and the 5-day study plan is also here at the time management link right here. So again, you just go to ace.fsu.edu, and then you'll go to study tools and tips, and you'll see the different labels on the side. So you can use any of those tabs, and it will most likely help you with whatever issue you think you're having. And the study skills and handouts, like I said, the 5-day study plan is all right there. So it's free to print out for your leisure, however many copies as you want. All right, that's it for our presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
If you have questions, you can come off mute or share them in the chat feature as well. Seeing none, I want to give a huge thank you to our partners over at the Academic Center for Excellence. Y'all are fantastic. These have been some really great tips and suggestions for students, because sometimes it's really, really difficult to kind of just start off and figuring out what do I need to study when you have 4 or 5 finals during the end of the semester, and you're working through finals projects and whatnot. And so it's really great to have these tips to break it down very easily. So, so thank you all for joining us. I will share that we have just a few more resources that we want to share with our students. So it's important to kind of have a plan going into finals. And so you've learned a little bit about what those resources might be today through ACE. There are 2 other things that I do, or a couple other things that I do want to share. And so one thing that you'll eventually find on our program and events page is this wonderful tool we have called Planning Backwards. And so like Latima and Wilfredo mentioned, this is a really kind of breaking down your assignments into smaller tasks is really important, but we also understand that sometimes students with disabilities have that difficulty with breaking things down, not only breaking things down, but then also following a timeline. And so what often may happen is that you get stuck at the end of the semester, or you get stuck close to the assignment, having to do so much to catch up. And so one of those tools that can help you with that is planning backwards. So sometimes what we know is that not only breaking down those assignments, but also planning backwards from the due date can actually help give you a more realistic expectation of how much time you're going to need. And so we have this wonderful tool that we'll post on our programs and events page under the resources section of for this event that takes you through an example and then offers you the opportunity to plan backwards yourself. And so you'll see that you can choose specific and different kind of milestones or objectives. So if you've got 2 weeks left in the semester and you're trying to figure out how to work on a paper, you might use this opportunity to say, okay, paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3 would be those objectives. And then you might set up a specific timeline for you to create those. And what you want to do is you want to start from the day that the project is due and then move backwards and give yourself not only realistic expectations, but also add some additional time to each of those, because as you go along, you're going to have different things that happen. And it's really important to make sure that you give yourself a little bit of that wiggle room so you can really prepare the best for that. And then you find those specific dates and you set those dates. And so this is a really great way for you to kind of space things out. And so if you find that working towards the project date isn't helpful, planning backwards is a really great tool to help you kind of adjust a little bit and find something that's going to work best for you. And then there's a really great and fantastic article that I often suggest for students. And so what we know is that not only is finals about the academic pieces and making sure that you feel prepared academically, but it's also making sure that you're taking care of yourself during that week. And so there's some really great tools. ACE mentioned our fantastic partners from ACE mentioned making sure you're getting organized. So all of the tools that they shared with will help you get organized. Making sure that you find that space in your house, in another location where you can socially distance and stay safe, but still have that important and comfortable space for you is really, really important. If you're going to take a final in an uncomfortable chair, it's not going to be good for you. And so find your comfy chair, add a pillow or two, create your space that's going to create a little bit of zen or a little bit of kind of get you into that focus that you need to do well in your exams. Also make sure that you're going to eat healthy snacks. So have healthy snacks prepared. Make sure that you have, some different options for you that are going to help boost your brain activity. They're going to help support your cognition, your memory during the week, things of that nature. And so having fruits, veggies, all of those things is really important. If you're on campus, you can certainly set up an appointment with the food pantry to get different items and healthy snacks that can help you during that week. So, and the food pantry is open by appointment, so we encourage you to do that. But even if you're off campus, making sure that you're getting those healthy snacks is important for this week. Also, making sure you take time to not only take breaks, and like they mentioned, the Pomodoro method is a really good method for that, but then also exercise. So staying active, getting fresh air is really important. And probably the most important thing is sleep. So cramming during finals week is not going to help you. You need sleep. And so, it's important to make sure that you're scheduling that and that you are taking time for sleep. Even if it's a smaller amount than what you would normally get, make sure you're getting sleep and make sure you're getting an appropriate amount of sleep for you to still function during the week. All of that is really, really important to making sure that you succeed during your finals. we're 2 weeks out, and now is the time to really be taking advantage of this and setting your plan in place. And so make sure that you're reaching out to your accessibility specialist if you find you're having some difficulty with this, or if you are unsure about your finals. We just recently recorded a session on honor lock and testing. And so we encourage you to check that out if you have questions on proctoring when it comes to your tests. If you have issues with testing, there's always the chat feature in honor lock. And honor lock will get in touch with your instructor to adjust the time if there's a time issue on an exam, particularly during a final. So make sure that you're using all of those resources and using this time to prepare in the best way to support your success on your finals. So any last questions, any other suggestions, thoughts? Seeing none, I want to give the biggest thanks to our partners over at the Academic Center for Excellence. Y'all really hit the home run on this program and gave us some fantastic resources and things to think about. So on behalf of the Office of Accessibility Services and our students, we're so thankful to have you on with us today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you guys for the applause. I see them. I just was waiting for the time to say something.
So as a reminder, this will be recorded and will be available on the programs and events page on our website. We have one last event next week, so we are excited. We're going to take a little bit of a break from the academic aspects of this and just offer it as a time to celebrate. So if you're a current graduate, or you're graduating this semester, we encourage you to join because we're going to have some celebrations for our graduating students. And it's going to be a time to relax. So we're going to have go through some relaxation techniques. We're going to go through some opportunities for to kind of just be in sort of a place of zen and also celebration for this semester. With everything that you've done. So be sure to tune in next week on Friday at 1, our regular time, to make sure that you can join us then. So, and otherwise, thank you all for joining, and we're looking forward to a successful end of the semester. So, bye everyone.